Good evening. It's Monday, June 6th, and this is Drive Check, a Cardfight Vanguard podcast.
Making my own stuff.
Apply to Cal Arts.
Well, you're going to make some business cards for the podcast, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Are you going to move into a 4-year program?
Probably not.
Ever? Don't ever say never.
Oh, okay. Sorry, not right now. Not at the moment. I might later on. But I gotta start actually producing.
Yeah, we need business cards before we go to Gen Con, so we can hand them out and get people interested in listening to our podcast. We need more Americans listening to this podcast. Not that I am in any way disappointed with our international listenership. I'm actually amazed at how widespread our listeners are, from Europe all the way across to Asia. But the USA, man, let's pick up the pace and get more folks listening. We just need listeners everywhere in the world. We need more listeners everywhere. So it's Monday night. Do you guys know what today is? What special day is today?
No.
Jack, you don't have an idea of how special today is?
I feel like I heard what it was.
It wouldn't have anything to do with wrestling, would it?
No, because I hate wrestling.
Remember?
That's what I thought. Hey.
Yeah, wait, no, I do remember. Today is, thank God it's Monday Day, Atheist Pride Day, Drive-In Movie Day, National Applesauce Cake Day.
Okay, I will stop you right there as you make a desperate attempt to get a right answer and ultimately will fail
D-Day.
horribly.
No, I know what it is.
No. Today
it's D-Day.
Not only the birthday of our favorite cartoon character, Aichi Sendo, June 6th.
Are you sure? I thought it was yesterday.
Also, June 6th.
Okay.
It is also the birthday of Mr. Takaaki Kadani, the CEO of Bushiroad.
Well, that's probably why.
Makes our favorite card game.
It's also Russian Language Day, National Yo-Yo Day.
Oh, wow.
National Gardening Exercise Day.
And Saturday
and National
was
Hunger Awareness Day.
So I had drama on Saturday because it was National Cheese Pizza Day, and Domino's had like a 2 pizzas for $5.99 deal, but they only updated their app to let you know that at like 7 o'clock at night, and I had already had dinner, and I was like, well, now I can't get a cheese pizza. So why are you wasting my time?
That's because they don't want to have to give them away for that.
Well, Dunkin' Donuts gave away free donuts on Friday for National Donut Day. Wow, this is not the holiday podcast. This is Drive Check, the Cardfight Vanguard podcast, I believe. Am I right?
I think so.
Are you sure it's not the
National Holiday podcast?
National Holiday Cast?
No, I only brought that up because it's Aichi Sendo's birthday, and we all should reflect upon our former protagonist in chief, now replaced by Chrono Shindo, who is still earning his wings as a protagonist of a series, even though Vanguard G is arguably a much better series than the original couple of seasons there. So, have you guys had a chance to play any Vanguard? I know, Jack, you've been pretty busy with graduating from high school and such.
Yeah.
Which, congratulations on going and getting your high school diploma, joining the ranks of me and Cole as adults who have high school diplomas. Even though technically and legally I should not have graduated from high school. I did get a New York State Regents diploma by hook and by crook. So did you get any Vanguard in?
Yeah, I played with the Connor Morgan.
The Connor Morgan. And did he whip your ass?
Oh, I got whipped. Real hard.
What were you trying to play?
I tried a bit of everything. I almost got him with my Spike Brothers deck. He was at 4, I think he was at 5 damage. And if he had, and I had just enough cards in hand to guard one more attack. And then he had to go ahead and get a triple critical trigger on his drive check. And he put them all on his Blaster Blade. And I had a perfect shield in hand. But of course he had the Blaster Friend Flogel in the back row. So he could counterblast one and restand his Blaster Blade. So then I died.
Yeah, it's Flogel and Barkle,
would have
I think,
won that game.
that give Blaster Blade all kinds of restandy abilities and such.
Well, Barkle just gives you a counter charge, and then Flogel's the one that restands your Blaster Blade.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would have won that game if that didn't happen. But every other game, I just kind of got whipped.
So, Cole, have you had any chance to get in some Vanguard or any TCG play?
Yeah, I got a little bit of Vanguard and one game of Weiss in.
Oh, which deck are you playing for Weiss?
I kind of collect the trial decks, but I tried playing the Fairy Tale English version, and I had a lot of fun with that one. It played pretty well, considering that was the only game that entire day that I won. So I'm happy with that.
And did you so what did you play with Vanguard?
Grand Blue, and then I tried my Gurguit deck, and Gurguit was just not working for me that day. I don't know what it was. I couldn't get a grade 2, and then I also couldn't get the grade 3 that I wanted. Because I run Gurguit, and then I also run Blade Crossed Lion right now until I can get the Dawn Goal. And then
You mean Ezel?
Yeah, you don't have Dongle yet. It hasn't been released.
You mean Ezel?
So it just wasn't
are you
working.
proxying a dongle?
No, not yet. I'm debating on it, but then I think I'll just wait, honestly.
All right, so
Because we got what, like a week left? A week and a half?
Well, we'll get to that in a minute when I go over my errata.
My bad. My bad.
11 days. So I went to League last night. I went to the Sunday Night League at Island Games in Centerville, Virginia, which it's crazy because there's one league that the location is convenient for me in Rockville, Maryland, but the time is not convenient for me because it's at like 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and just because of my exercise schedule on Saturday mornings, it's really hard for me to get out there by 1 o'clock on a Saturday. So the time for the league at Island Games is very convenient for me, like 5:30 on a Sunday night. That's cool. You know, it goes from 5:30 to 9:30, but Centerville is 45 minutes away from DC. So that's like I have to take care of dog and cat and leave the house by like 4:30. And then I'm not getting home until like 11 o'clock at night if I hang out and like have food or whatever after league. So like the location is not convenient. But I'm gonna figure out what to do with that because I actually I like both those leagues for different reasons. So we'll see how well I can attend one or the other. But they did do like a league tournament, and I was playing my modified Battle Sisters. And I lost every round until the last one when I played against my staff member Alan, and I think he just knew what was better for him and threw the game rather than trying to win against his boss. But I learned two things about two of my cards that I've been playing, which I didn't realize. One of them, so I've been using the Battle Sister critical trigger, which is Battle Sister Muffin, and her ability is when you place her on the rearguard circle, you can immediately put her on top of your deck. And I thought that it stopped there because there's additional that you can give Oracle ability to another one of your to another one of your cards. But I didn't realize that after it describes what happens with giving the Oracle ability, it says shuffle your deck, and that still applies to the first part of it. So for a while, I've been putting Battle Sister Muffin on top of my deck and leaving her there. But you put her on top of your deck and then shuffle so that you don't immediately call a crit trigger on your first drive check.
Oops.
And then another one of the cards I play in that deck for if I go first, I try to play Imperial Daughter, which she, like, a lot of people don't recognize her because she's not that great and nobody used her for a while. But she has Restraint, which means that one of her abilities is Restraint, which means that she can't attack. And then I didn't realize, I thought there was only one way to remove Restraint, but there's actually two ways to remove Restraint. One way to remove Restraint is to Soul Charge one of your rear guards. And I think it's like Counterblast 1 and Soul Charge one of your rear guards. And the other way is if there are no rear guards at all, she loses Restraint. But the thing is, if there are no rear guards at all, she gets plus 10,000 plus 1 crit on her own, and she's a 10,000. Is she a 10? No, she's 11,000 Vanguard. So she basically on her own comes to a 21,000 Vanguard. Plus 1 crit. So I use that if, like, I go first and she's my grade 3 against a grade 2 and I can't stride, at least I can get that power up. But still, she's not played that much because she's just not that good. But I had fun, and I'm glad I went, and I bought a bunch of packs of Binding Force of Black Rings and pulled absolutely nothing good. So, did you guys get any pulls this week? Did you buy any packs? Did you? Oh, so you got the cards that Cole sent you from the Fighters Collection?
Yeah, finally.
Finally.
That's not Cole's fault. That's the post office's fault for losing my package for a good couple of days.
Well, don't yell too hard about the post office, or you'll never get any mail ever again. But I was super psyched to get that because I think I pretty much, well, no Transel's Messiah, but I did get the 4 G Guardians for Link Jokers, so that really, really helps. And 1 G Guardian for Oracle Think Tanks, but what's really important was 4 G Guardians for Bermudas.
Yeah.
And 2 of the GRs, grade 4s, for the Bermudas.
Was the Bermuda Stride a GR? I thought it was a triple rare.
No, every.
No, not every stride.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. The stride for the Bermudas in that set. It's very pretty. It's a beautiful lady. So I'm recommitting myself to the Bermudas. So I'm pretty focused now on 4 clans. Link Jokers I'm going to definitely stay with. Oracle Think Tank, because when I put that Battle Sister deck together, it reminded me how much I love playing Oracle Think Tank in the play style. Genesis, just because that night we were going through my cards and I realized I had so many Genesis cards I had completely forgotten I even had. And then my Bermudas, which I have, I think, the most of any clan. I have Bermuda cards, like hundreds and hundreds of them. So that leads us to our news. Who wants to jump on the news? Because it's super exciting news.
Jack, you can do it.
Cole, you don't talk enough. Take it.
Okay, fine. All right, so we don't have any Spring Fest updates right now, or any English Spring Fest updates. We do have a new G Clan booster coming out. New emphasis on the new, because it's called The Blessing of Divas, and it's the reprint set for Bermudas. Am I right? Is that how that?
Is it reprints
It's
or
not
is it
reprint.
new issues?
There's 1 reprint, and then there's the rest of the cards are new cards.
Oh, wow.
So far, there's 1 reprint.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be more.
Bermudas typically come out with a new set. It's a set that is only Bermudas, and they typically come out with 1 every summer.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, because there's the last set that Bermuda's got, the GR, I think it's Olivia, was their Stride. That was a $200 card. And so in this new Bermuda set, it's getting reprinted as a rare, so you'll be able to get it a lot easier and not have to spend $200. Yeah, because that was like, if you wanted to play Bermudas competitively, that was like you needed 4 of them. And so now you can do that without having to drop $800.
Yeah, I don't even want to pay $80 for an Amnesty Messiah, let alone $200 for an Olivia.
And it was one of those ones where it's like flip up a copy of Olivia. So
it's even worse.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Bermudas mechanic, I think, has always been, I think even throughout the different variations of Bermudas, it's basically bouncing. They attack and then they bounce off the field, pretty much. But we'll talk about Bermudas some other time, maybe when we get closer to this set coming out. And Jack, there's another set that's been announced that will be coming in August. Is that correct?
Yeah, the G technical booster, the Genius strategy is so we got our first technical booster with Spike Brothers, Tachikaze, and Nubatama, and then this one has Mega Colony, Great Nature, and Mirakumo. And so that comes out July 22nd in Japan and August 26th for us. So one thing I really like about this is like we're basically caught up to Japan and where we get all of our stuff like only a month after they get their stuff.
Yeah.
And like a lot of card games, you have to wait like several months before you get everything that they have.
Yeah. And speaking of caught up on the cartoon, they have ended Gears Crisis in the dub because nobody here watches the sub, and they have begun. Would you do not? Don't fib. And they have begun Stridegate on the dub version of the cartoon. So they had their Gears Crisis. It's happened, and now we're in the post world of whatever happened. I watched that last episode of Gears Crisis, and I was like, what, did they get like sucked into a spiritual realm? What? Somebody's gonna have to write us to explain what that was. Confusing.
We could do a whole like breakdown episode of that, like episode of the anime, and like how deep it is and like the religious background behind. I'm just kidding. We're not.
No, I don't think there was any religious anything in there. But it was something, yeah, where like they were intercepting the beam, and there was like the beam guardian, and well. This isn't cartoon talk. I think we may actually save that for episode 15, where I like to talk about history and lore, that we can talk about Gears Crisis and what they were trying to convey during that. I do have one errata for this week, because I think I was a little confusing last week. The new set 7, G Booster Set 7, Glorious Radiant Sword, I can never get the name right. June 17th. So it's June 17th, not June 16th, only June 17th. Because even after I said June 17th, I then followed up by saying June 16th, but it's not. June 17th is when that will come out. Be at your card shop at midnight, pound on the door, demand they give you your case of Glorious Radiant Sword, even though you don't play any of the clans in there. My shop is having a pre-release next week Sunday, or not my shop, Island Games, the one I went to on this past Sunday. So their pre-release is Sunday night. So that'll be cool. I'll probably end up going and sending all of my pulls to other people who play the clans that are in that set that I do not play. All right, so well, I mean, because it's just like Gold Paladins, Kagero, Dark Irregulars, Gear Chronicle. They're just like the lowest rung of clans. So
what are we going to be talking about today, Will?
Well, because some fine folks who have reviewed us in iTunes, we want to show our appreciation, and we had some consideration for one of the requests that came in that way, that somebody asked for more clan reviews. And kind of in talking about that, we do want to be a program that's oriented towards people who are just learning about Vanguard, not for people who are super pro, know everything about Vanguard. And then additionally thinking about the fact that there are 24, I think, main clans, not counting Token Rambo and Etranger.
And
or maybe actually including them. So if we only come out with one episode a week, that would go into years before we did a clan review of every clan. So we're going to pick it up, try to do some more clan reviews, actually split them over 2 weeks because I still don't want this program to require an hour to an hour and a half for everybody to listen through. I'd rather try to keep it around 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So even though I wanted to talk about a different clan because I'm so tired of the bros who play Gold Paladins, we are going...
Yeah.
Just wait. You're going to get a frat next year, Jack. This time next year, you're going to have like your frat letters tattooed across your chest. It's so sad.
Correction, across my face.
Oh, no face tattoos. No. I will fly out to California and like stand in the doorway of the tattoo shop before I let that happen. So we are going to do a Gold Paladin clan review. This week, we're going to talk about the history of the Gold Paladins, kind of where they came from and everything. And then next week, we're going to talk about the competitive builds because there are a few different ways of looking at Gold Paladins for competitive. So I'll start out just because I've been catching up on the older cartoon series, although it starts at episode, I want to say 66 is the beginning of the Asia circuit of the cartoon, and that is where we first get sight of the Gold Paladins. And basically what happens is Aichi Sendo, our main protagonist, shows up at Card Capital, the card shop that he frequently goes to. There's nobody there except for this like white-haired little boy who asks him to teach him how to play Vanguard, of course, because every new series has to start with somebody learning how to play Vanguard. And Aichi is playing with his key deck that, for the first 2 or 3 seasons, he most identified with, which is the Royal Paladins. And at that point, he had already incorporated Blaster Dark into his deck. So he plays, and the little white-haired boy is playing a strange clan that Aichi has never seen before. Anyways, long story short, at the end of the match, the little boy disappears. Aichi has the Gold Paladin deck to play with, and he has no idea how he got it. He thinks the little boy switched it, but nobody else remembers him playing any other clan other than Gold Paladin. So something has happened in the universe, or people's memories have all been reprogrammed to have them forget that Aichi used to play a different clan. Just also, for a little more background, if you do want to get into the Asia Circuit cartoon, at the same time, Toshiki Kai gets his deck, it was actually at the very beginning of the episode, switched so that he's no longer playing Kagero, and he starts playing, I want to say Narukami? Is that correct?
Yep. With Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion.
Yeah. So, Jack, explain to our folks, without giving too many spoilers about the Asia circuit, why IG is now playing Gold Paladins.
So basically what happened is that I believe the Void just took hostage the leaders of Royal Paladins, Shadow Paladins, and Kagera. So what happened is that Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark were absorbed by the Void, and the remaining members of the two clans formed together to make up the Gold Paladins. And the Gold Paladins, their kind of their goal for existing was to go and hunt down their leaders so that they could form back into the two separate clans again.
Yeah,
and you kind of see this existing in the card game where Spectral Duke Dragon was a Gold Paladin unit originally, and in the last set we got Spectral Duke Dragon back, but this time he was a Shadow Paladin. So it's kind of they're kind of like, it's not just something that happened in the anime, like they're kind of revealing it in the card game as well.
Yeah, and so you'll see cards in the Gold Paladin set that have similar names to either Shadow Paladins or Royal Paladins. And I believe the term that they use for the Void taking the leadership is that they've been sealed. I think that's the way that they describe it. But basically, the Void took the strongest champions of the Golds, Royals, and Kageros, sealed them away, and then Cray is left with the other champions to come and take their place. But the reason why Aichi has to play the Gold Paladin deck, which we've kind of learned in the first few seasons of the Vanguard cartoon and sort of the Psyqualia story, is that Cray works out their political problems on Earth by tormenting human beings into having card fights that represent the political battles, and then whoever wins the card fight wins the political battle on Cray. So we're just pawns for the various clans of Cray to work out all of their problems. So Cole, have you caught up on this part of the cartoon, or are you just not there yet?
I stopped, I think, halfway through Link Joker.
Oh my god, show's canceled.
Well, I mean, I haven't gotten up to Link Joker yet, and I play Link Jokers.
Link Jokers are so good. Oh my god.
Link Jokers weren't introduced when I quit.
No.
So if they're like right around the corner, I'll probably have to go back and finish it. But I couldn't do the whole slice of life drama that it turned into.
So
couldn't do it.
The first set that Gold Paladins were released in was...
Set we can find out later, but they were introduced in the 5th trial deck, which was Slash of Silver Wolf.
So it was a Garamore based deck, I believe.
Yep.
Garmore.
However
Garmore.
you pronounce his name.
That's how it's pronounced in the anime. It's Garmore.
The first booster set was Booster Set 6, Breaker of Limits, because along with the start of the Asia Circuit cartoon, they introduced the limit break mechanic with the Gold Paladins, and a bunch of the clans got limit break stuff. We'll talk about that a little later. So, how do the Gold Paladins work?
Basically, how Gold Paladins like to operate is they're similar to Royal Paladins and Shadow Paladins in that they like to call cards from their decks and in order to gain advantage on the field without having to lose cards in your hand. And the way that Gold Paladins are different is instead of getting to search for specific cards, generally you have to look at the top couple of cards and call them, and because you're not guaranteed to get what you want, it leads to some interesting cards being made that if they were in another clan entirely, they would be so much more powerful, and it leads to just the cost of calling cards to be a lot, like instead of like Alfred, the original Alfred is Counterblast 2, search your deck for a card and call it, I believe. And these cards, you get power and you get cheaper counterblasts to call units.
All right, so there are a few different subclans within the Gold Paladin clan itself. I think there's like 2.5, although I think the third one is becoming stronger, especially with the release of the start deck.
Good agree.
So I know that Cole is most familiar with the Bluish Flames. So Cole, what can you tell us about the Bluish Flames?
Bluish Flames, a lot of people look down on me when I play them because it's kind of stalls out a clock, because what you do is you're checking the top 3 to 5 cards in your deck, and you're looking for a Liberator, which is another larger subclan, but these guys are technically part of the Liberators. They're the Bluish Flame Liberators, and there's only 3 cards that have Bluish Flame in the name, but there are cards that seek out the Bluish Flames. But anyway, so you're calling the top 3 to 5, and if there's a Liberator, you call them directly. And that you're basically making your board really, really big. Bluish Flames center around the Legion ability. So you return 4 cards from your drop zone, and then back to your deck. You shuffle or search the Legion mate for the card, and then you'll shuffle your deck. And the Legion mate is specified on the Legion card. I believe the Legion card is primarily grade 3. Is that correct, Jack?
It's usually a grade 3 and a grade 3, or a grade 3 and a grade 2.
Yeah. It depends.
The Legion.
The grade 3 and the grade 3 is the revival legions usually, and then the grade 3s and 2s is like every other legion, I believe, is how it works. There's not a legion with a grade 3 and a grade 1 as of yet.
So what are the key cards of the Bluish Flames? What are their names?
Well, there are 2 triggers that are huge. There's Catch Gold Liberator, and that lets you. Okay, I forgot to mention that.
Which, by the way, Catch Gold Liberator is now an $8 card.
Ooh.
Wow. Okay, it was like 30 cents when I got it.
Yep, so. That's the big thing of today is Catch Gold Liberator. Anyways, continue.
Interesting. Sorry. Yeah. So Bluish Flames, they get powerful the more cards you call from your deck. So there are lots of cards within the sub clan that call cards, and then there are others that just gain power boosts over and over again. So Catch Gold Liberator is you put this card at the bottom of your deck, you look at the top 3 cards and search for a Liberator among them, and then call it, and it can't be itself. And there's Ascendant Liberator Barb Truck, which is basically the same thing, except you check the top 4 cards for Bluish Flame specifically, and then you add it to your hand. And
so which are the Bluish Flame cards? Because those are mostly Liberator dealies. So what makes the Bluish Flames the Bluish Flames?
Bluish Flames are knights and dragons that have a lot of sparkly bluish flames around them. Like the strongest, I guess, and the most important is Bluish Flame Liberator, Prominence Glare, and he's a grade 3 Legion. And then the budget friendly, or filler, as some people like to call it, other 2 grade 3s are Bluish Flame Liberator Percival, and then there's Bluish Flame Liberator Prominence Core. So there's Prominence Core and Prominence Glare.
Yeah, so there's only 4 cards with Bluish Flame in their names. So they're all Bluish Flame Liberators.
And
so
then
it's Percival, Prominence Core, Prominence Glare, and then Bluish Flame True Liberator is the grade 4 Stride, and that's Holy Flame.
Yeah, and I don't use Strides in my deck, just because I at the time that I made this, I didn't fully understand what Strides were, and this deck specifically is just Legion. Throwing grade 4s in there would kind of slow down, because it wouldn't work with Prominence Glare's ability as well.
Well, that deck doesn't really. It's good for the Strides are just good to have, like when you don't have the Legion. When you don't have the Legion you want as your main Vanguard, but that deck is one of the few decks that can get by without using Strides, because the Prominence Glare is such a strong card by itself.
Yep. And then it's also pretty interesting that Oath Liberator Aglavale, Bluish Flame Liberator Percival, and Prominence Core both use the same Legion mate, Oath Liberator Aglavale, and then Prominence Glare uses Regulation Liberator Aglavale. So it's.
All right, and Prominence Glare basically cannot be, as long as you counterblast and discard a Bluish Flame, Prominence Glare cannot be guarded by anything other than zeros.
Yep, and it gets a crit.
So it's the opposite of a Silent Tom.
Yep, and it gains a crit for every time that you want to activate its every time that you want to activate its ability. So if you've got the Counterblast to spare and the Bluish Flames in your hand to discard, then you can just keep gaining the crits, and then you can only use grade 0s to guard. Which is great.
Yeah, so
All right.
generally, the way that Gold Paladins were, just kind of like the history of how they came out. It came out with Garmor. So if you're going by the anime, Aichi used Garmor, and then he moved on to Ezel, and then he moved on
very quickly. He moved to Blonde Ezel,
and then
as his limit break.
And then when they introduced Cross Rides, they went on to Platina Ezel, which was when they introduced the ultimate break, which is you have to be at 5 damage. And then in the Link Joker season, they introduced Liberators, which is when the Royal Paladins kind of came back to the Gold Paladins. So like you still had Blaster Blade and all those guys. And then Bluish Flames were introduced, and they were played by, they're still Liberators, but they were played by Oliver Galliard, I believe. And then now in the G era, we have whatever the kid's name is, who plays Gurgweet and his clan and his
the
support.
little kid.
Yeah. So
Liberators are just a sub clan where they. Is there anything special about the way that Liberators work?
Well, they all have like, a lot of them have a special counterblast, which means you have to counterblast a card with Liberator in its card name to activate their ability. So generally, you can only play Liberators in a Liberator deck.
Mm-hmm. So it's like very much like Battle Sisters in
exactly.
Tank, where everything has to be a Battle Sister. So Liberators, everything has to be a Liberator. But do they do anything different than your typical Gold Paladin of looking at a certain number of cards from the top of your deck and you just pick one from that?
I believe the old Liberator deck focuses more so on break riding, because that's when break riding was first introduced. So the clan is more break ride centric, and there's like combos with Garmor and Gancelot, I believe, where you break ride and then you give all the units you call power. So that's it's more of like
very brief.
Yeah.
What is a break ride?
It's a kind of limit break when you ride a grade 3 over another grade 3, and the unit you ride over gives your unit 10,000 power and another ability.
So we're gonna have a unit in the soul.
Well,
specifically,
it's specifically riding over it, and you get it for the turn. We'll get more into that in depth next week, I believe. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the more competitive decks is based on a break ride.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. And Gurgweet had a sub-clan because Gurgweet was in charge of the investigators?
I don't think there's a sub-clan for Gurgweet. I think it's just the new Gold Paladins.
Okay. So a lot of stuff is being built around the Gurgweet deck.
Yeah, because it's a good stride break. Yeah. So, and that's just kind of like a general overview. I think kind of wrapping up now, we'll get into like more like actually like certain decks and which decks were competitive and how each deck's playstyle works next week.
Okay, so we can move on to our term of the week, and we picked Limit Break as our term of the week, just because Limit Break was introduced at the same time that the Gold Paladins were introduced at the beginning of the Asia Circuit portion of let's just say Booster Set 6. Let's not make everything about the cartoon. But Booster Set 6, Breaker of Limits, is when Limit Break was introduced. And Limit Break, there are two types of Limit Break. There's a Limit Break 4 and a Limit Break 5. And I don't know, there obviously can't be a Limit Break 6. Shame on me. But a Limit Break is an ability that is only active if you have that number of cards in your damage zone. So if you have a Limit Break 4, you have to have 4 cards in your damage zone, whether face up or face down, it doesn't matter, but there have to be 4 there, or that ability is not available to your card. So from my own experience, and Limit Break 5 means that you have to have 5 cards in your damage zone. Wow, that was hard to say.
And it's not called Limit Break 5, it's called an Ultimate Break, because like some of the cards that have been released lately have a abilities that kind of treat your damage as if you had 4 damage, so you can use limit break skills earlier on in the game, and those only apply to the limit break 4 effects. They don't apply to the limit break 5 effects. So they're kind of classified as 2 different things.
The way they're marked on the card is the same, though. It would be an LB and then the number.
Yeah, but it's called Ultimate Break. I think they say Ultimate Break in the anime because it's more dramatic.
Okay. Of course it's more dramatic. But just if you want to see an example of a card that has limit break, the one I'm most familiar with because it's the one I play the most is Battle Sister Cookie. And Battle Sister Cookie's limit break is it's a limit break 4, and so that means if you have 4 damage, you immediately add plus 5,000 to her power on attack. So just very simple like that. But there's other cards that have the limit break ability, and it's kind of fading with strides because I don't think any of the limit breaks are written to support a stride. They only support the card before it's been strided, if that's correct. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I don't believe there have been any strides released with limit break abilities. But if there are, we can always come back next week.
Well, no, the main thing is, right, because when there's it's the writing on the card says limit break 4, this unit gets this whatever ability.
Oh yeah,
Once
yeah.
you stride, that ability does not carry on to the stride. Card.
That depends. If it's I don't know if there's any limit breaks that are worded like this, but it says for the rest of your turn, your units on when a unit attacks, you get something. So like if it says for the rest of your turn, your units get some effects. So like for example, there's the card that just came out in Japan called Raven-Haired Ezel, and it's a limit break 5. When you ride this card over another unit for the rest of the turn, every single time you attack, your opponent can only guard with grade 0s. So you can stride over, and then I think it's grade 0s, or it's one of the two where it's either only grade 0s or can't guard with grade 0s. But it's for the rest of the turn. So even if you stride over him, all of your rear guard attacks and your Vanguard attack all get that ability as a constant ability.
Yeah, because the ability started before the stride did.
Exactly.
And also around this time, there were introduced cards that in order to support the limit break ability, what they do is when you place them on rear guard, you take one card either, is it from your hand or the top of your deck? And
it's generally the top of your deck, I believe.
Yeah, and you put it in the damage zone. So it can get if you're riding at 3 damage, you can place one of these rear guards, take the card from the top of your deck, get your damage to 4, and then at the end of your turn, you take a card back out of your damage zone. It does not have to be the card that you put into the damage zone. So if there's something that you wanted to get out of there, you then have the option to do that. Like if you have a good trigger that is in your damage zone, or a grade 3 that you desperately need in your damage zone, you can take it back out and probably shuffle it into your deck that way. So that's limit break. Not that big of a mechanic anymore these days, but it is important to understand it because people can still play it.
Yeah.
And it may come back someday.
Well, there's a couple of decks, but I don't think they've printed cards in a while. But yeah,
with the limit break, somebody did say to me, that's a really old ability. So. So I think that's enough about Gold Paladins for this week. We will continue next week with a discussion of the competitive Gold Paladin decks, wherein I will take a nap because Gold Paladins are the antithesis of everything that is Will Anderson. And Jack and Cole can talk about what they consider to be competitive Gold Paladin decks, even though I don't think a Gold Paladin deck has topped anything in quite a long time. Please, if you are using iTunes, can you please go in? I'd appreciate any reviews that people can give us, because that really is what helps us to get noticed by the folks that matter. And it also makes our podcast more prominent for people who might be looking for a Cardfight Vanguard podcast to listen to. I know, we do have listeners all the way from Sweden to the Philippines, but we want to get more listeners in all of your countries, and then you'll be able to associate with each other and play more Vanguard. So please, even if you don't use iTunes, install it, give us a review, and then uninstall it. I didn't say that. So as we do every week, I'd like to say thank you to SBJ, who helped us get started, and to Nick Burgess, who gave us our music that we use in the intro and outro, and I pronounced his name correctly. Congrats to me. Yeah. And we have a Twitter account for the podcast now, which is Drive Check, and it's drive_check. So that should be pretty easy to find. You can tweet at that. And I try to go in there and send out things that Bushiroad has announced or any interesting Vanguard facts from that account. If you want to follow my personal Twitter, which also includes a lot of Pokemon stuff, that's Swash in the Sink.
And I am at Cole_McCune, so it's COLE_MCCUNE.
And I am at drive_Jack. Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode of the Drive Check podcast. And we outie.
Ezel sucks.
Nobody says we outie.